Awesome. Okay, well, let's jump in. I'm really sorry, Cindy, to hear you had a rough day, but we are really kind of talking about such things. So I was going to ask, who's ever had a really rough, just you feel like everything is cloudy, nothing is super clear in life. Anybody ever had one of those kind of days? How does it make you feel?
Defeated, totally defeated. Like, what am I doing here? And why is this happening to me? What are you trying to show me, God? And a lot of times when it's bad, like that's the wrong thing I go through. What are you trying to show me, God? Because I think I feel like I'm missing something.
Okay, yes, good, good, good. All right, anybody else? Just cloudy. You know, you're praying for clarity, you're praying for wisdom, and you feel like it just ain't coming, God. Just stuck. Anyone else ever in a haze, in a fog? I know everybody's eating, but
I think when I have those days, I just wish everyone else was just in the same boat. Like, no happiness for you, no happiness for you. Um, yeah, join my party. But then I'm also very quiet because
Mhm.
I just can't understand how this is going on, and talking is too much
Mhm.
energy. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. Thank you. Gee, what were you about to share?
I think I'm like it sometimes can get to like a despair moment. And this is probably going to sound really odd, but sometimes I get to the point where I'm just like, I wish my thoughts could go darker, but there's something that's holding me back from it. If that makes, I'm just like,
Mhm.
God, like, I guess I got to stick in this. Like, I want to go deeper and be like, no, I'm just done and whatever. But it just like something won't allow me to. So I'm just sitting here like, well, guess I have to be positive or we have to get through this or I'm just gonna like it just feels like I have to will myself to continue on.
Right.
And once I do, similar to like what our therapist has said, like if you are depressed, you need to do like 3 M's, like gain momentum, get moving, and I forgot the other M. But yeah, so I feel like that's the state I'm in. I'm always like trying to just will myself to the next thing, like just make it on.
Right. Right. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys for sharing. If God is almighty, which we know that he is, why do you think he allows these kind of days? You know, we all love those. We love the wonderful sunshiny, everything is clear. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. We love those days. But then comes the cloudy, foggy, ugh. Why does he allow those, you think? Brenda.
Um, I think it's more for us to have perspective because I've been writing out some like just a monthly practice of writing out like some excerpts in the Sermon of the Mount.
Hmm.
And there's this one where he's like, love your neighbor, love your enemies, and pray for them. And he's like, he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and then the rain to come on the unrighteous and the righteous. And I'm all, and then he says, be perfect as your father is perfect. It's kind of like perspective every time that I can't just live thinking that because I'm God's daughter, everything should be good. Then I will not really have, also like the experience curve for me won't grow
Right,
if I don't have perspective.
right. Okay, very good. I saw this quote a week and a half ago, and then I went down this rabbit hole. So you guys are going to go down that rabbit hole with me tonight. But every cloud is not a storm. When I read that, I was like, ooh, what's that? Every cloud is not a storm. What does that mean? I mean, I know it's common sense, but what does that mean to you? Go for it, Brenda.
Okay, well, because sometimes as like sometimes what you think is a storm kind of opens up and it reveals this beautiful ray of sunshine. So that's my thinking. Like every cloud is not a storm because if you endure it just a little bit longer, it actually might turn out to be something else
Yeah.
than what you anticipated.
Yes. And everybody has been through a storm, right? If you think about your life, we've all been through some storms, and they're all very different. But God is saying, yeah, but not every cloud is a storm. So I want us to dig into that tonight. We're going to go over into Numbers. This is where we're going to start. We're going to kind of jump around. But Numbers chapter 9. If I can get a reader, we're going to do verses 15 through 23.
It's BJ, if I can share.
Absolutely. Hey, sweetie.
When you said that at first, I was thinking like, okay, when can I, and we always apply it to our own lives, but
Right.
there's definitely been times where I felt like, oh, wait, Lord, please get me out of this. But it's like, unless I went through it, I couldn't learn like what he wanted me to learn. And
Right.
so even though it may have felt like a storm, it may have been cloudy, may have felt like torrential rains. Literally, it was the place where I could be refined and learn actually what God wanted me to learn. So there's
Yeah.
been pretty long periods, but that's when you said that, it made me think about just that, like places that I was like, oh Lord, I would never go back there again. But if I didn't go there, I wouldn't have taken away the work he did in me while I was there.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that is ultimately, guys, that's where God is trying to get us to go. It's all about perspective. I feel like I say that a lot, but I'm serious. When we see a storm coming, literally, if you're looking outside, you see the dark clouds, we immediately start going, oh no, it's gonna be, we immediately go down negative road. What if God is trying to get us to take a different route? So I want to look at what he did with the Israelites, which I found just fascinating when I started digging into this. So in Numbers chapter 9, starting in verse 15, who wants to read tonight? 15 through 23. Go for it, Margie. Thank you. You're muted.
Try not to make too much noise. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. On the day the tabernacle of the tent of the covenant law was set up, the cloud covered it. From evening till morning, the cloud above the tabernacle looked like fire. That is how it continued to be. The cloud covered it, and at night it looked like fire. Whenever the cloud lifted from above the tent, the Israelites set out. However, the cloud settled, Israelites encamped. At the Lord's command, the Israelites set out, and at his command, they encamped. As long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle, they remained in camp. When the cloud remained over the tabernacle as a long time, the Israelites obeyed the Lord's order and did not set out. Sometimes the cloud was over the tabernacle for only a few days. At the Lord's command, they would encamp, and then at his command, they would set out. Sometimes the cloud stayed only from evening till morning, and when it lifted in the morning, they set out, whether by day or by night, whenever the cloud lifted, they set out. Whether the cloud stayed over the tabernacle for 2 days or for a month or a year, the Israelites would remain in camp and not set out. But when it lifted, they would set out at the Lord's command. They encamped, and at the Lord's command, they set out. They obeyed the Lord's order in accordance with his command through Moses. That's
Okay.
amazing.
All right. When I first read this, I'm going, man, they just keep saying the same thing over and over
No,
again.
they didn't.
Okay, what's the point? Because you literally hear him saying the same thing. He says it again, he says it again, he says it again. What's the point of what she just read? Got to be a point because he's saying it over and over. GIC, I know, swallow first before you start.
I'm trying. There's a big head of cauliflower. I'm just like trying. I mean, to me, I just got that, just their trust in God, and that trust leading to obedience. So a lot of times, like whenever God gives us a command, it's our trust in that we will continue on to be obedient to it, which then in turn brings about, God's security or comfort or whatever it is. Not always, because
Right.
you could be sick, but in this situation, I'm just going to say that their obedience led to God, having joy of that. So
Okay. Okay, good. Like that. Margie.
Because God's in control. God was in control of them day and night, morning, evening, no matter what. God was in control. They were literally following his command no matter what, whether the sun rose, whether that they had the cloud, they didn't have the cloud. They were literally staying with what God's command was, day, night, evening, no matter what it was. They followed and they trusted that their level of trust in God leading them was very prevalent as to whether they left, whether they stayed in camp, whether they stayed in camp for a day or they stayed in camp for a month. God was the leading influence as to what they did on any given day.
Okay, love it. Good,
But
good.
God is an influence that way for us all the time.
Okay, good, good. Anyone else? Love it. All right. But why does he say it so many times? I mean, honestly, I didn't circle or count it this time, but it kept saying the word cloud. When the cloud, when the cloud, when the cloud, I was like, okay, already. He's making some kind of a point that I think we need to go back and grab. So I want us to go now. We're going to go back just a hair. Go over to Exodus chapter 13. I want somebody to just read verses 19 through 20. I think I may have us go further than that. Give me a second to get there.
Exodus 13, starting in verse 19. It says, Moses took, let me
All right,
see,
my bad. Exodus 14.
14, okay. Starting in verse 19, you said?
Yes, 19 through 20.
Okay. All right, Exodus 14, starting in 19. It says, Then the angel of God who was going before the host of Israel moved and went behind them, and the pillar of clouds moved from before them and then stood behind them, coming between the host of Egypt and the host of Israel. And there was the cloud and the darkness, and it lit up the night without one coming near the other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hands over the sea, and the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and went in after them in the midst of the sea, all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And in the morning, and in the morning, watch the Lord in the pillars of fire and the cloud look down on the Egyptian forces and then threw Egyptian forces into a panic, clogging their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, Let us flee from Israel before the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians. Then the Lord said to Moses, Stretch out your hands over the sea, that the waters may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. So Moses stretched out his hands over the sea, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. And as the Egyptians fled into it, the Lord threw the Egyptians into the midst of the sea. The waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all of the hosts of Pharaohs that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained.
Okay. We know this story. We love this story, right? As Moses parting the Red Sea. But the focus on what Macretia just read in the very first part in verse 19, and the angel of the Lord who had been traveling in front of Israel's army withdrew and went behind them. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them. When we saw it over the tabernacle, the direction was if the cloud is over the tabernacle, what do they need to do? Stay put,
Be
right?
still.
Be still. The cloud is over you, stay put. If I lift that cloud, you're free to travel. I put it back down, stay put. And it said sometimes it was a day, sometimes a couple of days, sometimes a year. But again, God was training them and teaching them to trust him again. What did the Israelites just come out of?
Well, let me Let me wait.
I'm
The Lord
sorry,
is
they
formulating in
came out
this
of
breath.
slavery to freedom with God. And here he's giving direction on how to leave that incredible situation they were in to be free, but be free with him.
How long had they been in slavery? Anyone?
400 years.
430 years they had been in captivity under the Egyptians, under Pharaoh and his people. What do you think that would do to a people who have been living under someone's rule for 430 years?
They don't know what freedom is anymore. They actually do not remember how it looks like.
Yes, they don't remember what it looks like. They have no idea. They've now developed what? Whose ways are they now living by?
The Egyptian way, so that they have Egyptian culture within them.
Yes, these are God's people, but they are living the Egyptian way. So yes, he's pulling them through, but once he gets them through, he now has to take Egypt out of Israel. He's taken Israel out of Egypt physically.
And the other way.
But now he's got to get Egypt out of Israel. So he has to now retrain his people. So this whole cloud thing, when he kept going, when the cloud is over it, don't you move. When I pick it up, okay, now you can go. When it's down, don't you move. When I pick it up, don't. It's like training a child. Don't touch that, that's hot. And they go and try to reach for it anyway, right, G? You know, and they get their little hands, but you go, nope, don't touch. It's like God is saying, I have to train my people all over again. So I'm going to use my cloud to command and as a compass. The cloud, as we start to see it, is a command from God. He tells them when to and when not to. And we also see it as a compass directing them where to go. So when we are finding ourselves in these cloudy places, could it possibly be, if we change our perspective?
Shelter.
Shelter.
So
Thank
from
you,
the
my
storm,
creature. Where'd you get
right?
that? Tell me, talk to me.
It just came to me at the shelter from the storm, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but
And
we have
yeah.
to trust that shelter,
Mhm.
right? Our instinct is to go and shelter ourselves. When a storm is coming, what do you do? I mean, just regular folk. What do we do? You run for cover.
Yes, I'll tell you one time. Reggie and I were newly married, and there was a hurricane coming in New Orleans, and it was our first huge fight because I wanted to leave and go to any state away from it. And he was
Right.
like, "You gotta stay. I think it's okay." I'm like, "No, we gotta go. Have you seen what happens here?" But anyways, just to your point, for me, if there's any natural disaster, I'm trying to bolt.
Yes, that is in our nature, every one of us. It was also in theirs. So he now had to get them to trust again, not trust the Egyptians, to trust their God. So he took the time to say, I am going to train you. I'm going to command you to stay and point you in the direction to go. Do you trust me enough to do it? That was so many thousands of years ago. But guys, do we still hear those same questions today? The exact same questions. Brenda, I saw your hand.
So it is interesting that the cloud happens in each instance. The cloud happens right after Passover. So in Exodus, the cloud happens after the real Passover, when actually the Egyptians lose all their firstborns and God jettisons the Israelites out of Egypt. And he's trying to get them to trust him that, yes, I rescued you. Of course, now you're being hated by everybody, but trust me, I'll take you through. And this time he has an angel as the guide who also directs where the cloud is going to be centered. But then in Numbers, they've just had their very first Passover as a practice, not going through it. and he's given them all these instructions on how to do it. And then that's when the tabernacle is set up, and he then instructs them to follow the cloud. It's almost like, remember, I took you through and the cloud guided you. This is not new to you. So now I'm bringing it back.
Right.
And this is exactly what I want you to do.
Right.
Almost like to test them, but also to fortify them, in their trust in him.
Right. Ooh, good stuff. Hold that, because I'm going to come back to it. Actually, I might go
Okay.
there now. God will often use something that you've seen before, something maybe that scared you before, something that made you feel unsafe, a little foggy, a little cloudy, and he will use it to bring you out of that bondage. He's bringing them into freedom, and he does not want them to bring that bondage with them. Who he has set free is truly free indeed. Think about when they may have seen a cloud before that may have terrified them. Any idea? Old Testament?
During the plagues.
During the
plagues, there was so many clouds.
During the flood. I mean, you think about, here they weren't even sure. Okay, yeah, right. You building your ark. Go ahead. We laughing at you. But I'm sure when all of a sudden that rain started to drop down from the clouds or from the sky, I'm sure they remembered that. So why then did God choose to use the cloud and not the sun? He could have used the sun. But he
Then
chose
the desert, the sun won't make a point at all because it's the norm.
Okay, good.
But the cloud provides shelter still.
Right.
And it makes a point.
Good. G, saw
If
your
he
hand.
used the
Margie.
sun, he
Oh, go
would have
ahead,
had to
Cindy.
change rotation of the earth. It would have been a big mess. I mean, a big physics mess. Clouds so much easier. It's evaporation. No
Okay.
big deal.
Okay. That's my science girl there. Thanks, Cindy. Love that. G, what were you saying?
I have two thoughts and they're random. But one, I was thinking, when Moses was given the commandments on top of the mountain, like it was super, super stormy. Yeah, that produced really good things, obviously. Like he had to weather a lot of stuff and also the storm. So that was one thought of when there was clouds before. And if Moses hadn't trusted that, that would have, if he would have just fled, wow, where would we be? And secondly, just storms in general cleanse the air. When there's rain, it purifies the air that we breathe. It gets out smoke or
Right.
dust or whatever. So that
Right.
was another little tidbit that I thought about when we have storms that we're going through.
Okay, good, good. Very similar to what Cindy was pointing us towards. Margie, did I see your hand? No? All right. Think about I'm sorry, Cindy, go.
There was a cloud around the mountain when God said, don't touch the mountain, not even an animal. So the clouds covered the mountain, almost like it's scary enough so that people would revere him, not to take it really seriously, not like this golden calf thing that they decided to cook up later on. So probably to scare the diapers off of you.
We scream God when we get terrified. I always say there is no atheist when it comes to a car accident, because when you're about to crash, you screaming God, you're screaming Jesus. It's in those cloudy, terrifying, scary, stormy moments, we call out for God. So I do believe there's a reason he chose the cloud, because that's the time in which he completely covers us, because it's almost like we lay down and go, God, please. I don't know how to control any of this. It's like we just kind of melt into wrap yourself around me. It's like Jennifer wrapping herself around her baby right now. That's where we become when we're in those dark, cloudy, stormy moments. Something very interesting, though, I want to go back to what Micretia read back in, I think, verse 20. Because the cloud was always leading them. It was always guiding them. It was always in front. But there's one time when the cloud goes behind them. And I think it's in verse 20. It said, well, the second half of 19. The pillar of cloud also moved from in front and stood behind them. What was it doing?
It was coming between Egypt and Israel,
The time
separating them.
protecting them. The cloud the cloud is leading us until it needs to move behind us to protect us. What was it protecting them from?
The Israel army.
Yes.
I mean, the Egyptian army, sorry.
Yes, the Egypt. This is what was revealed to me this week, and I just went, whoa, God, I just got chills. God used the cloud to protect them from their past. How many of us are stuck because of our past? Like he said, who the Son has set free is free indeed. He was bringing his people to freedom, but he could not bring them to freedom, dragging their past with them. So the cloud stepped in and went, okay, I've already been pointing you towards where to go, and you're moving in that direction. Now I'm going to stand between you and your past. Do you trust me? Remember this whole cloud thing when he said, when I raise, when I, don't move, when I do this, don't do that. He was building trust. Now that he's standing between us and our past, we've got to ask ourselves, God, do I trust you? Do I trust that God can hold back Pharaoh and his army? Because the Israelites had to trust that. We see the movie, The Ten Commandments, and, Charleston Heston and go, oh, that was really awesome. But think about if that was us walking through that sea, we'd be petrified. Would I trust that God who says he's got my back, do I trust that he's really able to hold back this army? Where do we get stuck? Think about it. If God stands between us and our past, where do you get stuck? Margie, I saw your hand.
Our lack of faith, our lack of faith that and trust in God will protect us, whether the clouds in front of us or the clouds behind us. God always protects us and takes care of us and does whatever's best for us. But we waver in our trust so often that it's hard to stay in that place when you see the clouds are dark and everything's coming at you and all these things are going wrong. And you're like, okay, I know, God, you're supposed to be close here, but do I really? And that's when you have to, do I really trust you? Do I really trust you? And it's hard, but you have to stop and really say, do I really trust you?
Good. Again, perspective. Where else? The rest of you, where do you get stuck? Brenda.
So, okay, God is here taking care of my past but I'm afraid of the unknown, which is the future. So then I'm standing here going, okay, all right, I'm good. So the fear of then moving forward
Right.
Keeps me from taking action.
Good. Okay. Again, he's standing between us and our past. We have to be willing to look at, am I stuck in that chasm? Because so often, guys, we're either trying to go back and reclaim our past, trying to make sense of our past or something. It's like we're trying to go back and do something with it. And God he just simply stood and said, now you keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
He never told them, okay, stop. Okay, I know I'm holding the water. Stop right there. Now turn back and you tell Pharaoh how you feel about it. I mean, they could have laid him out. You done it. You know what I mean? He didn't say, he just said, I pointed you in the right direction. Now you keep going. I don't need you to turn and look back at this. What happened to Lot's wife?
She froze.
Because she turned and she's looking back. We have to look at our past and place it in his hands and say, it is finished. Now, does that mean it doesn't still haunt us? It's still hard. I mean, think about it. Slavery had to be a cloud over the lives of these people. Anything that even looked like slavery, I'm sure it made them go, ooh. Yeah, we all have PTSD over something. You know what I mean? You see something that's similar and it makes you go, oh, no, no, no. I think God wants us to look at that and show that if you're still bristling, if you're still getting quivers, that means there's something about your past that still has a hold on you. I know I've said it before. If I have a scar, which I do on my hand, that I cut my hand years ago, I still see it. The scar is there, but I can hit it all day long and I feel nothing. However, if I were hitting and I still felt something, that means it's not healed. There's something still there. So we have to look at it and go, does my past still have me? Even though I'm over here and I'm supposedly free. Cindy, saw your hand.
You mentioned, I have a question. You mentioned in one of our previous meetings that those who have been abused or have suffered trauma in the past have a harder time with this.
Yes.
And I can concur with that in spades.
Right.
So it's, I know all of this sounds really good, but for people who have had an abusive background, I mean, you get therapy, you do all that other stuff, but in general, it is much harder to get through.
Yes.
Are there any suggestions that come to mind or in this discussion, other than just trust God? I mean, I hear that all the time.
Right.
It almost becomes meaningless,
Yes.
especially if you're in the midst of a trigger.
Right. Right. And I won't say just trust God. I think it's okay to say, yes, it is harder for you. It's okay to say it is harder for me because I've gone through this, that, or the other. But I believe, even though it's harder, God can still slowly but surely start to set you free. It may take you longer to get free, but God still has the power and the ability to set us free. He doesn't give us a timeline. I wish we knew of all those people that have gone past through the Red Sea and went through all of this stuff. I'm sure they all came out, but it took a lot longer for them all to get free. I gave the example the other day. I don't know if I shared it with you guys or someone else, and I freely shared. I struggled with bulimia for at least 8 years of my life. I mean, intensely so, in which I was hospitalized and I nearly died, and I probably should have died. Once I became a Christian, I was set free spiritually. I still struggled with overcoming an eating disorder. Now, I didn't struggle with it to the degree in which I did before God reached in and grabbed me. I mean, I literally spent my whole day over a toilet throwing up. That's how bad it was. God slowly but surely started to change that cycle within me. I wish I could say I got baptized and it went away forever and never ever crossed my mind again. That wasn't the case. And when I shared that with a pastor, I could see the shock on their face. What do you mean you still struggle with it? But I was honest because it is something that had a grip on me. It was a stronghold that only God could set me free from. I had to trust it in the hands of God. And even if other people looked at it and went, well, you can't be much of a Christian. They didn't say it to me, but you can feel it. You know what you feel every time you slip up on something, whatever that something may be. But if I know earnestly, God, I am fighting this battle, and I know you're in this battle with me, then every day or every month or every year, however long it may take, it got better and better and better. Is it a struggle today? No, but I remember it. Like I said, it's a scar that I'll never forget. but I had to pass through it in order for me to heal. It was a cloud that sat with BJ for a decade.
Mm.
And in that battle, I think as Lucretia was saying early on, that's when I found who God was for me. I can look at it now and go, thank God for the experience. Now, I'm thankful I didn't die in it because I literally was hospitalized and everybody was like, we don't know what to do here. I should have died. So I'm thankful I didn't, but I am thankful that I touched the face of God because I went through it. Now he's more real to me than he ever would have been had I not experienced. I needed the cloud in order for me to see the face of God. Up until then, I heard other people talk about God's face, but my mom's faith couldn't be my faith. You know, my pastor or my Bible talk, your faith is not my faith. It's not your faith until you go through the trenches and the ditches and you've come out the other end and go, I know what God looks like. I know what he feels like. Was it dark? Was it cloudy? Yes. But thank God I went through it because now I can see clearly. Does that make sense, Cindy? Like I said, I know it's not. Often when you get a question like that, I know you're searching for an answer. And the answer isn't as beautiful as go drink 5 glasses of water and it'll be okay.
Oh, this was sufficient.
Awesome.
This is helpful.
Good. Good. All right. But I want us to look at when we feel cloudy, it distorts our view. When we are feeling cloudy, it distorts our view, which is why we've got to stop and go, okay, I got to change my perspective. If God is working in the cloud, either he's guiding me or he's protecting me from my past. Why am I feeling so bleh about it? I have to change my perspective. Let's look at different cloud instances in scripture. Can you think of cloud instances in scripture before we even take a look? Hey, Tab.
I mean, Jesus was perfect, but him in the wilderness for 40 days, I know wasn't an easy feat. And I'm sure he had cloudy thoughts and sadness.
Yes. Yes. See, remember, we think God or we think Jesus and we think, woo, Jesus. Remember, he was us. He was down here. So think how you would feel going through your wilderness. Cloudy instances. Any others?
Elijah
I'm sorry.
says, oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead,
was
Brendan.
somebody,
Go ahead, Brendan, then I'll hit Margie.
so when Elijah, the rain doesn't come for 3 years, and then Elijah sends his servant out and he just sees a tiny little cloud and then it becomes bigger and brings refreshment.
Yes. That's a great example that every cloud is not a storm. It was exactly what he was praying for. So when he saw that cloud, it was like, amen, this is what I need. Margie, I saw your hand.
Esther's experience with the fact that Hagar wanted to kill all the Jews. She found out about it, knew about it, but that girl didn't let that cloud stop her from doing what she needs to do. Jeremiah and her conviction was so deep. She told everybody, you need to stop, fast, and pray. And let's change this whole that thing that's going to happen. We are going to trust in God. And she was so faithful. She had everybody else following her as well. But she was the queen.
Yeah.
And they would have said, oh, well, you're the queen. You can change it. No, that wasn't how it worked.
Right. Right. Good. G, and then Cindy.
No specific one. I was just gonna say pretty much every character in the Bible had a cloud. Like God does not use people that don't have problems. God does not use people that aren't going through something. Like that is the entire Bible. So for me, I'm like over here like ping ponging, like there's so many different ones. So man, But I was thinking of Paul when he was blinded and like that moment of like, what is happening right now?
Right,
Like I
right.
can't even see a cloud. So this is dark.
Okay, good, good. Cindy and then Brenda.
Pretty easy one to find is in Jonah. Big storm, a
Mm-hmm,
lot of wind.
mm-hmm.
Jonah's not going anywhere. You can run, but what's the point?
What's the point? Good. Brenda, thank you.
So this one is in Psalm 18, like 7 to 18, where David talks about how God rescued him from Saul's destruction. And so he's so like the clouds became so dark, and then God used that as his canopy to then come, and then he rescued me from all this.
Yeah.
And he delighted in me
Yeah.
because he's like he rescued me because he delighted in me. And
Everybody's hitting. I love how G put it. Hey, it's everybody in the Bible. It's
Yeah.
chock full. You think about it again, it's, believe it or not, it's easier to see God in hard times than it is in good times.
Yeah.
You know, so when you're feeling that deep cloud, you're feeling foggy, you're going, okay, God, you're trying to get me to see you more clearly. You have me in this fog. You're covering me, honestly. You know, you think about a fog really is the cloud that's come down and it literally covers. So it's God covering you. Maybe he's trying to keep us from seeing something. Maybe he's trying to keep us from moving. It is God's protection, as someone said earlier. So let's not dread or push away that fog so quickly. I know we'd rather everything be light and beautiful and fluffy and white and all those wonderful things. But sometimes God calls us to just be still. Stop moving. Stop thinking, BJ. BJ's a thinker. I think myself to stop moving, stop thinking, just be. Let me cover you because I know what's in front of you. I got what's behind you. Now let me prepare you for the race ahead. So if you need to stop and chill right now, I need you to just stop and chill. I want to just do a quick little read, just a couple of things. So I'm gonna G, if I can get you to pick up Matthew 3:17.
Yep.
Okay, we're just gonna hit some pretty much one-liners. If I can get someone else to do Acts 1:9, who can take that one? Cindy, thank you. And then if I can get someone to take 1 Thessalonians 4:17. Thanks, Micretia. All right, so G, and then I had Cindy. Okay, and Micretia.
Matthew 3:17. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased."
Okay. Now, for mine it says, a voice speaks out of a cloud. This is my son, whom I love, whom I am well pleased. I want us to see clouds are not always a storm. Here is God speaking out of a cloud. So obviously, clouds mean something to him. And they're not all negative. There's a positive thing. Again, he could have spoke out of the sun. He could have spoken out of the wind. He's speaking out of a cloud. Cindy, read yours.
It was Acts 1
9.
9. Thank you. After he said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight.
So here's Jesus ascending into heaven on a cloud. It's like his chariot. You know what I mean? Again, I want us to change our perspective around clouds and cloudiness. They're not all bad. You know, sometimes it is simply the vessel that God is using to move you from one thing to the other. You know, what if it's the vessel God is using to get you to ascend up into heaven? Look at what he's doing. Micretia, read yours.
Says, then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. And so we will always be with the Lord.
What is he saying? Guys, we're going to have a party. We all gonna be hanging out on clouds. You say we all gonna rise up. You're gonna meet together and we're gonna rise up. Cloud and cloudiness does not have to have a negative connotation. I want us to take back what the devil has stolen from us.
Mhm.
He has decided it's cloudy, it's foggy, it's blue, it's negative. God has deserted you. You need to feel depressed. He has decided and planted all of these seeds into our heads, and we have said, yes, okay. And what God is showing us is that no, even the clouds are mine. Did God make anything that was not good?
No.
Hypothetical question, did he make anything that was not good?
No, because every time he finished creating, he said, and it was good.
And it was
very
good. And it was good. Now we may take it and make it something that is not good. But in the hands of our God, everything he created is good. Every one of us, as sinful and crazy as we can all be, God made us good. We make choices that may change that, but God made us good. So we're claiming, we're stealing back what was stolen from us tonight. So whatever kind of day you've had or days you have had in the past, I want us to replant our thinking around it. Doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean we're even going to enjoy it, but we are going to start saying, but it's in the hands of God. It's either in the hands of God or we're placing it in the hands of Satan. And that part is our choice. What I wrote down, and we're going to get ready to close out. I wrote down, in your cloudy place, there's an intersection between you and God, between God and man. There's an intersection when we get to that cloudy place, because that's when we finally stop trying to figure it out. We stop trying to work it out. We finally go, God, I can't do nothing. And he goes, oh, good, BJ, just where I need you to be. And that's when that intersection actually takes place. It's when humanity crosses over into divinity. That's when we finally go, oh, now I'm resting in God's arms. Lastly, I wrote down, the cloud for them is what faith is for us. It's where we learn to trust in the compass and the command of our God. It's where we allow him to be the person that we actually trust and believe in. He was trying to get the Israelites to trust and believe him again, because they once did, until they were taken captive for 430 years. Now he had to reclaim what was his. How long have we been captive? And that answer is different for everybody. I believe we're all born believing, being his. I think we all start there. And somewhere along the way in life, we're taken captive. And God is saying, now I want to reclaim what is mine. But I can't bring you to freedom if you're still carrying all this junk. He used a cloud because a cloud probably used to terrify them. And now he wants them no longer to be terrified. It made me think about the snake. Back in the day, right? They would get bitten by a snake and they would die. So he was like, oh, a snake. And now all of a sudden he says, no, this snake is going to heal you. It's like God would use the very things that terrify us to heal us. My terrifying cloud growing up was always people. I was always terrified of people, and BJ never spoke because she was terrified of people. That was the cloud I lived under for so long. God, when he pulled me out, he says, okay, now I need you to conquer your fear of people, and I need you to overcome this fear of speaking. Otherwise, even though you physically have been pulled, or spiritually have been pulled to freedom, you're still locked up. So he had to set me free. So I don't know about each of you, but I believe God is trying to set you free of something. You've got to look at it and talk to God. God, you have spiritually pulled me over to the other side. What am I still holding on to that you're saying it's time to release that? Some of us can't swim, BJ. Lucretia. And mostly it's because we have memories of something that we tried to do and we didn't do it well. I almost drowned. Ah! And God's like, okay, but that was decades ago. Now, I need you to conquer this. Let's try it again. So what is it for you that you maybe failed at somewhere down the road? Maybe you weren't so great at it somewhere down the road. So now you've already told yourself, I'm never going to be able to do this. And God is like, no, who the Son sets free is free indeed. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Give me some feedback. That's all I got. But yeah, I was sitting with this all week going, oh God, okay, this is good. This is good. This is good. Give me some feedback.
It's a really good reminder of there can't be light without darkness. You know, they go hand in hand. So, like, there's the intersection of divinity from God and us. We play a role. There's a role for the darkness. There's a role for the clouds. And we just have to be brave enough to see it through.
Amen. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Deb.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else before we close this baby up?
Oh, thank you for helping us see clouds in a whole other way too. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah, switch.
Every cloud is not a storm. All right, ladies. Well, thank you for giving me an hour of your life.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you much.
Thank you.
G,
Thank you.
again, it's good to see your face. Yay.
Yes.